Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, praises and thanks always be upon to our God Allah, the Lord of universe, who has given us all blessing till we still have a chance today to meet in our online class. Well, today we are going to have a discussion with our first group that will be presenting about psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics. But guys, before of all, let me give you a little information about what we are going to discuss today. We have already known that psycholinguistics has some branches. Those are language processing, language acquisition, and neurolinguistics, right? And today we will discuss about the psycholinguistics and the neurolinguistics, either about the connection and also the differences. Well, before we step to the connection and the differences, it's better for us to know about the definition first, right? And I will give the time for Miss Adillia, Mother Atu Salsabila, to deliver your presentation about definition of psycholinguistics.
Well, now here I want to explain you about psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics is the study of mental aspect of language and speech. It is primarily concerned with the ways in which language is represented and processed in the brain. The main is psycholinguistics is we learn about mental aspect, language, and speech that concerned with the ways in which language is represented and processed in the brain. So, the discipline is mainly concerned with mechanism by which language is processed and represented in the mind and brain. That is, the psychological and neurobiological factors that enable human to acquire, use, comprehend, and produce the language. So, the last is psycholinguistics has two aspects. There are language production. Language production is in which refers to the process involved in creating and expressing the meaning. So, language production is the process involves the creating and expressing the meaning. So, the second is language comprehension. Language comprehension is a person's ability to interpret or state something in his own way, the knowledge he receives. So the main is the human have ability for state something by her knowledge that he know, like that. So the last is language acquisition. Language acquisition is a person's ability to understand material or concept that can be used to communicate with others, either usually or in writing. So, language acquisition is concepts that use communication with other person, like that. So, and that used by writing or speech, like that. Thank you. That's all for me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Kartika, and I'm as the second speaker would like to continue about my friend explanation that is about neurolinguistics. In this study, in neurolinguistics, we are going to learn about the definition of neurolinguistics itself, and the next is about the function of the brain, and the next is language disorders. The first is the definition of neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistics is the study of the relationship between language and the brain, and neurolinguistics is the study of neural mechanisms in the human brain that control the comprehension, production, and acquisition of language. This study is also focused on the field in order to understand the difficulties in using language, or we can call it language disorders, that involve the activities of speaking, listening, writing, and using the sign language. So, in this study, we are going to learn about how our brain is processing the language. Neurolinguistics is related to investigating how language is comprehended in the brain and then how the production occurs as well. Next is about the function of the brain. You can see in the left picture first, there is the picture of human brain. Human brain has two hemispheres. The first is left hemisphere, the next is right hemisphere. Left hemisphere generally is responsible for language, math, and logic, and the right hemisphere is responsible about spatial abilities, face recognition, visual imagery, and music. Because we are learning about neurolinguistics that is focused on the brain and language, so we have to focus on left hemisphere. You can move to the picture in the right side. There is picture about left hemisphere. As you can see, there are four main parts of the brain that is processing the language. The first is broadcast area. This area is responsible about the production of speech. So, while in this area there is a problem with this area, so the people will difficult to produce speech or while they are speaking. Alright, the next is Wernicke's area. This area is responsible about the understanding speech. So, the damage of this area, the people will difficult to understanding or comprehending or interpreting the speech. The next is motor cortex that is responsible about physical articulation of speech. This area is controlled about the articulatory muscle of the face, jaw, tongue, and larynx, and it can control movement of the muscle, for example, moving hand, feet, arm, and etc. So, while we are speaking or while we are interpreting language, this area is controlled about our movement. It can be our hand, feet, arm, and how our face is moving. So yeah, this area is control about our movement. The next is arcuate fasciculus. Actually, this area is a bundle of nerve fibers, and this area is connecting between Broca's area and Wernicke's area. The next is language disorders. So, language disorders is the difficulties of people in using language. So, when there are some problem with the areas that I have mentioned to you, so it will make the people difficult, or we can say it language disorders. The first is expressive language disorder. So in these language disorders, people have trouble getting their message across when they talk. They often struggle to put words together into sentences that make sense. So, in these language disorders, people are difficult to producing language or producing speech. it is indicate that there is a problem with in the broadcast area that's responsible of production of speech. And the next linguistic disorders will be explained by my partner. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alright, thank you for the chance given. My name is Isna, Amelia, Agustin, and I will continue the explanation from the second speaker about language disorder. Okay, for the second point is about receptive language disorder. As you can see here, people struggle to get the meaning of what others are saying. Because of this, they over-respond in ways that don't make sense. Okay, usually people who has this kind of language disorder will have a difficulty to understand what other people are saying. And usually they cannot respond or give a right response. For the example, when you said to your children, "Hey baby, could you please help me to take a book on that table?" And your child didn't give any response, or they didn't take the book but they take a remote control, for the example. It might be your child has a receptive language disorder. They are very difficult to understand or get a meaning of what people are saying. And then for the third point is mixed expressive receptive language disorder. It means that people have difficulties with those expressive and receptive. They are very difficult to express what they are going to say, either with word or gesture, and they also feel difficult to catch or understand what people are saying. And this is attributed to a reduced left hemisphere functional specialization for language. And I have an information about that taken from a measure of cerebral blood flow, or SPECD, in phonemic discrimination tasks. Children or people with mixed expressive receptive language disorder do not exhibit the expected predominant left hemisphere activation. So guys, do you ever find a person who has this kind of language disorder? Okay, next to the connection between psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics. Basically, between psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics has the same object. It's called as language. Yes, language needs brain to process the word to be a spoken or written language, and also to understand and catch the meaning from the spoken or written language itself. Of course, brain is also needed, because brain is the most important part of the process of thinking and produce language. Without brain, how can we use all the sense we have, right? The brain is the mother of all human organ systems, included in the ability of human language. Human capture or learn a language through the sense of hearing and vision, and then process it through the brain so that human can understand what others are saying and writing. And also, humans implement the language they learn through their mouths and heads, which is controlled by the human brain also, right? Therefore, language affects the mind or brain, and the mind affects language. It means that when people are saying about something, the mind will automatically respond it by the language, either it is spoken, written, or gesture. For the example, when your teacher asks you to open your book, you will directly take and open your book, right? That's what we call language affects the mind, and the mind affects language. Well guys, I think that's enough for the explanation of connection between psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics. For the next explanation, it's about the differences between psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics, and it will be explained by my partner. And that's all from me. Thank you guys.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Yazid Bustomi. I from TBI2, the second semester. Okay, now I would like to say thank you very much to my lecturer who ordered me to make video to explain the difference between psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics. First, about psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics is the study, yang pertama itu the first, psycholinguistics is the study of the process or algorithm that support the perception or processing and production of language. Maksudnya di sini psycholinguistik adalah studi atau pelajar tentang proses atau algoritma yang mendukung persepsi atau yang dimaksud dengan pemrosesan dan produksi bahasa begini. Second, there's the relationship between human language and human mind. Hubungan antara bahasa manusia dan pikiran manusia tersebut. Hubungan antara manusia itu dan pemikirannya manusia itu. Second, that's about Neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistics is mostly interested in the neurological understanding of language. It tries for the most part to understand how the brain handle language. Nah, di sini neurolinguistics sebagian besar tertarik pada dasar-dasar neurologis bahasa. Ia mencoba sebagian besar itu, buka kurung itu, for the most part sebagian besar untuk memahami bagaimana otak menangani bahasa tersebut begini. Untuk memahami bagaimana otak menangani bahasa tersebut, bahasa yang diucapkan oleh people tersebut begini. Disebut di sini. Communicationnya bagaimana cara mendengarnya gitu. Second, language and communication relationship on the brain function to produce the language. Hubungan bahasa dan komunikasi pada otak berfungsi untuk menghasilkan bahasa. Hubungannya apa? Hubungan bahasa tersebut, bahasa yang diucapkan oleh people itu dan komunikasinya itu akan menghasilkan pada otak itu berfungsi untuk menghasilkan bahasa tersebut Hubungan bahasa dan komunikasi pada otak berfungsi untuk menghasilkan bahasa. I think this one. Oh, forget. I think that's for algorithm. Algorithm itu adalah algoritma. Menurut saya, I think that's wrong. If menurut guru saya ini atau menurut dosen ini, I think beda pendapat tentang algoritma. Menurut saya sendiri itu algoritma algoritma is a sequence that is explained in solving problem, namely to option the desired output from a quantity in or from a people in a limited amount of time. Di sini itu algoritma adalah deretan yang diberi penjelasan dan menyegahkan masalah tersebut. Yaitu untuk apa? Untuk memperoleh keluaran atau yang diinginkan dari suatu orang yang tersebut, dan jumlahnya pemikirannya itu terbatas begini. I think this all for me. The essay. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.